space near 3000 Richmond area, behind the building there. We also help landscapers learn how to do their landscaping organically through an association called OBA. So we do a lot of different things to help people know what they can do with a piece of land that they have.
I noticed you have a roof collection system. Will you show me that and tell me about it?
Sure.
Let's go.
We have them in two different sides of the house, and actually it's part of a broad effort to keep rainwater on the property as much as possible. There's a number of different things you can do to keep rainwater on your property. Watch your head. And is this rainwater cistern here. This is a metal tank created by Texas Metal Cisterns, which is at texasmetalcisterns.net, I think is their website. And they're in out near San Antonio. And this is a metal tank that's lined. It's on a 4-inch reinforced concrete block foundation, and it sits here. It can't be any higher than the roof line, so wherever your roof is determines it. And so in the back here, this is a double wide gutter. In the Houston area, you have to actually have very wide gutters. I only have 3 downspouts for the whole house. And so when it rains, you've got to collect a lot of water in these gutters before it can gut down into this system. So it comes out the rain out of here and pours into this spout. And the first part is going to be pretty dirty coming off the roof, so it goes down here and sits, where I can release this every so often to clean this out. And the clean water then goes in here and fills this up. And there's this one contains 2,200 gallons of water, which will fill up in about a 6-inch rainfall. That's a total of 6 inches if I don't use it. I have 2 more on the other side of the house, which is off of our screen porch, which has a lower roof. So those are each 1,250 gallons. So there's a total of about 4,700 gallons of water with 6 inches of rain. So
How much does 4,700 gallons of water cost from the city of Houston?
we figured this out, and I couldn't tell you that number offhand, but I paid everything done. I didn't do anything myself, and I went premium all the way because I wanted it. There's so few people have done this, and I wanted it done right. So including the gutters, I ended up paying $4,200 for 4,700 gallon storage. And the estimated lifespan of this is 20 to 30 years. The concrete blocks probably last longer than that. And we expect, given city water costs at present, to take 9.5 years to pay it back in irrigation water. I just use it for irrigation, so I don't need to purify it. If I was trying to bathe in it or drink it, I'd have a whole bunch of other issues, which I'm told I could do, but I haven't done that, because irrigation is charged twice what everything else is by the city. Because when you buy water from the city, they charge you 1 gallon for the water and then 1 gallon for the sewage. And when you buy irrigation water from the city, if it's part of your regular water bill, they charge you for sewage even though you aren't using it. So every gallon of irrigation water you're actually paying twice as much for as for other gallons of water. So anytime you reduce your irrigation bill, you cut your water bill, and that's a great benefit to the city as well. Now, another thing to mention here is this is just one of many ways to keep water out of the streets during heavy rains, so that when the city put in this sidewalk, which was not so long ago, we're fairly high up because we're in one of the lowest places in the subdivision, and the city considered the idea of creating a grade down here to the sidewalk. And if you look at this, you'll see that if they had done this, it would be a steep slope here, probably soil going over onto the sidewalk, but even worse, water and soil would be lost from the property where we want it to sink in. So one of the things I've done with this, we asked them to do this and they were good enough to do it, but we've also swaled this so that there's a lot of efforts here to keep the water in. And
so you've got little dams.
Yeah, they're called swales because they run against all they do is slow the water down. Watch up there.
Okay.
And we go back up here. Before the city was doing sidewalks, we did something on this front, and we put in this. And we use stone because it absorbs water, unlike concrete. The stone is a lot less. And so we put in this swale right along here. You can see how decorative this can be. And then we have another swale back there to slow it down. The water sinks in, so we don't have to irrigate our lawn. We save money and we save that for the city. So the city, and there's another swale back there, and we do, I have a lot of kinds of fruits.
Tell me about your fruit trees. Tell me about how much food do you produce for your family out of your yard?
Now we, well, see, you mean like that grapefruit up there, that grapefruit tree in the front yard. We figure that we produce more than 90% of our produce, vegetables and fruits, with not very much work. In fact, no more than I would probably spend just getting exercise anyway. I enjoy gardening, but actually the amount of work it takes to grow lemons like this, or grapefruit like that, or oranges like that over there, and that's just this time of year. We're in December, but if we were in some month like May, we'd be looking at blackberries or strawberries or plums or peaches. And these are figs. This is midsummer, but there's nothing on here. Well, I don't know. That looks like a bird has been working on it, but this is December, and figs aren't supposed to be available here in December, but probably, well, it's not very sweet. Figs in December are a waste of time, but citrus is what's good here in December. And this citrus has all kinds of other advantages. We put it on the sunny west wall, and so
that's part of passive solar design.
Yes, it keeps the sun off the wall, and these are more fruit trees and so on, and more cisterns. But for example, this is a rain garden here. And this has all sorts of plants in it that are attractive. I mean, they produce flowers. This is practically the only time of the year when there aren't flowers. But you can see how many flowers were on these hardy hibiscus during the summer. This is a plant called halberd leaf hibiscus, and it's a native swamp plant. But just digging down and adding plants means that you can have flowers almost the entire year. And the water accumulates there, so even though it rained 3 inches yesterday, we're walking around here. I actually have sandals on, and I'm not getting my feet wet because a low spot there, the water will sink in there. It's actually not that hard to learn how to grow vegetables and fruits because Urban Harvest, which you can find at urbanharvest.org on your website, has lots of classes on vegetables and fruit growing, even gardening with rainwater. We teach a class every year on cisterns and rain gardens. That's a rain garden, and swaling. And other methods of reducing the waste of rainwater. You know, when rain comes down, and I put these cisterns in right after Tropical Storm Allison. During Tropical Storm Allison, we have a very small house. I calculated that we had 18,000 gallons of water come off this house in just 5 days. So that's a lot of water, not counting what rained beside the house.
If everyone in Houston did that, it would reduce the demand on our flood control system, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. Civil engineer Jennifer Walker works for, I've forgotten the name of the company, Dodson, but they did a study for the Texas Medical Center about various alternative ways to reduce flooding. And yes, indeed, if everybody tried to keep water on their property during rainstorms, the cost to the city of dealing with it, and during an Allison, you're going to have some flooding. But the more water people can keep on their property. And what I wanted to say about Allison was that 6 weeks later, I found myself out in the yard watering plants during the drought that followed. And I just said, I'm paying money for this water, and it's crazy. If I'd saved some of those gallons, I wouldn't be paying for it. So I'm sort of off the grid when it comes to irrigation water. I rarely use city water for irrigation, and I have a big garden. So that's part of it. I have a pond over there. It's not a great pond, but it is a pond. And a pond is yet another thing you can do that will I have to go this way, I think would be the easiest way to look at it, at least. And pond is yet another thing. Now, we can make much better ponds than I have, and it operates more like drainage than anything else. But, you know, it's a nice, cool glade. Sometimes we put a bench out here in the summertime, and this is winter, but it serves as a place where toads and frogs can get a start in life, and that helps our insect control. In the pond is a fish called gambusia, which is a native mosquito fish. So mosquitoes tend to lay their eggs in there, and then the gambusia eat them. They're almost like piranha, the way they go after it. You throw a bug in there, and you should just see the way the thing operates.
Where would you get that fish?
They're found in most ditches around the Houston area. The Nelson Water Gardens out near Katy off of I-10 sells them, I'm pretty sure. But I think you could find them in most ditches. Be careful of the blackberries there.
Thank you. Let me ask you
Yeah.
a slightly different. I have treated wood deck,
Yeah.
and I know that's been treated with toxic materials like mercury and.
Actually, not mercury. It's, if it's older wood, it's chromated cupric arsenate, CCA, which is a toxic, very toxic carcinogen according to many people, many experts I've read. I'm not a specialist on that, but it's now no longer being sold to consumers 4 decks.
Let me ask you, if I have a big, bunch of that stuff in my backyard,
Yeah,
should I get rid of it?
I would get rid of it. It's illegal to compost it at a compost dump in Texas. It's considered a hazardous waste.
My goodness.
Yeah, and so they
Is it going to damage my soil?
well, it's arsenic, and there's a lot. It's hard. I wouldn't know that, but I grew up, and when I was taking middle school, we read the story of the Romans who foolishly made their water pipes out of lead, and like lead is not as dangerous as arsenic. And then you find that people have built everything out of arsenic in all through the South where there's termite danger, arsenic. And you say, well, what? And, I teach pest control classes, and people say, well, what is a good pesticide? And I say, well, what do you think? What would be a good pesticide? And they say, well, something that kills all the bad bugs. And I say, well, why not try plutonium? It's really effective. It's killed everything that has ever been tried on it. And they look at me like, well, of course, but who would? And I said, well, I know it's hard to find it, but
Very effective.
very effective. And so people have never, they know how to critique a movie or a TV show, but they do not know how to critique a pesticide. They don't know what a pesticide, and so you can market a pesticide. I've seen pesticides that were marketed as don't cause cancer. And people think, well, wow, that makes it safe. And they don't realize that, in fact, this doesn't cause cancer, but it causes birth defects. And it's known to cause birth defects. And then they think, well, surely the government wouldn't permit this to be marketed. And I said, well, you don't think that we have things for sale that are dangerous? I mean, surely they sell guns in stores, don't they? I mean, surely a gun is dangerous. I mean, it may be legal. Whatever you think about guns, you surely don't believe that they're safe unless they're used properly. And so, of course, pesticides are marked. They're poisons. That's the fact. So anyway, we don't do anything with poisons. We don't recommend poisons for control of pests.
How do you control pests here?
I teach a class every fall on that, there's a lot of basic ways, but probably beyond the fact that we are very careful in planting things that do well in Houston at the time and in the place we put it. I have violets over there, and they're planted in a well-drained, damp place in the shade. On the other hand, the lettuce over there is sitting in a raised bed, and it's growing in cool weather. I don't try to make it grow in the heat, so it does well. You have to know what the plant wants. That's the first thing, and you need to provide it. And then the second thing is that you create what we call a balanced ecosystem. We create a lot of features in the garden that are attractive to critters, insects, and mammals and lizards and things, spiders, whatever, birds, that will kill the pest. And the shortest way of saying that is that if you have a pest problem, you have to ask, why doesn't the pest have a pest? The pest needs to have pests. And the way you control pests is with pests. And the pests will do the job while I'm busy yakking on gardening. The pests are out there, and I could probably even hunt down something that is, even on this cold day in winter, which nothing is very accurate. There's birds around, and may even be able to find bugs. Who knows? It's hard to know, but you get down in the ground, you can find things. I have no idea, but
There's a cutworm.
yeah. Well, cutworms themselves are not too damaging, provided there's not a lot of them. But, you know, this is an actual case because this is just your gumbo clay that's had a lot of organic matter. And that organic matter softens that clay up over time. And it provides a fungus or bacteria in the soil that feeds microorganisms that eat diseases in the soil. So
Say that again.
that there's a soil food web in a properly managed soil where there are microscopic organisms that eat disease bacteria, disease fungus. So that sort of thing goes on all the time. And in order to have that, you need to have food supply for the microbes, and that means decaying plant material on the surface of the soil. I guess what we talk about really at Urban Harvest is gardening literacy and more broadly eco-literacy. The idea that people need to be educated about these issues in order to act in a effective way when they're out on a piece of land. One of the things we do is we have a partnership with the Houston Independent School District to help teachers teach the curriculum in outdoor classrooms. So a school will have a fish pond, orchard, a vegetable garden, a compost heap, all these different things, and they will learn nutrition, mathematics, English, poetry, drawing, outside as well as in the classroom. So they get to develop an appreciation for the knowledge they're learning and the use of it in something they care about. We have a school in our network that has a beehive, and they make their own honey and they put it in bottles, label it, and sell it to the PTA. And surely the children learn a lot from that, but it's up to the teacher to teach the curriculum in that context. If you are going to have a supply of high quality vegetables and fruits in the Houston area, and you know, this is a pomegranate. It doesn't look like much right now, but come summer, be full of pomegranates. But if there is going to be a tasty fruit, tasty vegetables, fresh, in the Houston area, it's got to be done by farmers who are making a decent living doing it. They can't compete with somebody in, say, Mexico who is perhaps getting $1 or $2 a day for growing food. No farmer here can live on that. So, but the fact is that the only kind of fruit or vegetable that you can grow 1,000 miles from here and get here is one that doesn't squash and doesn't rot. So the truth of the matter is that if you want tasty food that doesn't have a lot of sugar and salt and fat in it, in other words, you want to avoid all those major diseases that come from that, like cancer and heart disease, hypertension, diabetes. All of those things are coming out of people dumping a lot of flavoring on food that doesn't taste very good without it. But if you grow it locally and produce it, you'll find that it's truly excellent.
You want to show me just a little bit more that way?
Yeah, I could do that. I'm thinking...
What trees do you, this is a blackberry.
Yes, that's a blackberry and a young peach there. This is a jujube, which is a Chinese red date. You're going to have to be careful with the tomato cage there. This is a fig, a certain type of fig. This is a grapefruit. This is a pear, and that's an apple. And these are just ready to eat. These are kumquats, and quite tasty if you like kumquats. It's one of the few citrus where you eat the skin. You can try one yourself if you want.
Let's see.
Got a few pits in it.
That's wonderful.
But it's there's a seedless variety that I have growing on the other side. That's an avocado over there, that small tree.
How do you deal with how do you deal with freezing for avocados here?
The way you deal with it, any fruit tree is a broader question. Something that's going to last for many years, which is that most trees are in that category. Very few vegetables, but most trees, they have to last many years. To last many years, you have got to find a variety that does well in your climate. Not just the weather, how cold or hot it gets, how wet or dry, how good the drainage, many, many other questions. And so with fruit trees, you have to find ones that do well where you are. Where I am, that particular variety of avocado will do well.
In the types of freezes we get.
Yes, this is one called Opal. Opal comes from area southwest of San Antonio, Divine, which has weather approximately that of the city of Austin. So that we know that this one will survive. When I say no, we're, in this case, we expect this to happen. But it won't be for about 10 years before I think we could probably say we are sure that it happens here. But every piece of evidence suggests that. So some of these things like this blackberry, this is going to produce no matter what we do. Other things we're guessing. Now our fruit tree sale that we have on this year on the 20th of January, but the third Saturday of every January, and on the urbanharvest.org website there's a lot of information about these avocados and everything else. We sell these plants. So, and that's because a huge group of people have worked to make sure these things are available to people, and it has information on how to grow them, where to put them, how cold hardy are they, and so on. If you live in Conroe, I don't recommend you put that there.
It freezes too much up there.
It's too cold. On the other hand, this apple here this apple might very well not have, this one may not tolerate that cold a winter in Conroe. You might have to grow a different apple.
I thought apples liked freezes.
They do. They need a chill in the wintertime, this apple included. This is one of the most warm weather apples in the entire world.
What's it called?
This one is probably Dorset. It's either Dorset or Anna. I'm not sure which, because those are the only two I grow, and they're really, let me see if I can get this. It needs to be moved anyway. It's time of year for pruning the apple, and branches. I put my labels. This one is a Dorset Golden.
Do you like those apples?
These are quite decent apples. They are nowhere near the world's gourmet apple.
Like Fuji's or?
Oh, they're comparable with Fuji, but they're not up there with yellow transparent and some of those things they grow on the British Columbia border. But we can't grow things that require that much cold. Not here. But in Conroe, you could grow a number of apples, like maybe Reverend Morgan, for example, which is a delicious, very delicious apple. But you wouldn't be growing grapefruits
Right.
in Conroe. So that's the difference. I'm going to put this up here where I can actually see it. This tree has grown. It will have a lot more apples on it this year, I think.
Would you tell me about this screening you've got over the bed?
These are the winter peas. This is a sugar snap variety coming up, and a shell pea over there, and some snow peas over here. This is a fava bean. And the birds, particularly the doves, will come in here and eat the seed. So what I'm doing is simply preventing them from getting at the seeds so that the seedlings will come up. And you have to do, that's one of the methods of dealing with pests, is barriers. Barriers are effective when, I mean, they're harder to do than what I was talking about. The easiest thing would be a panther that just eats every bird that tries to do that would be nice, or maybe an eagle. But the truth is the eagles are not doing the job here, so we have to go and I have to be the eagle, more or less.
You can't get a panther here.
I can't get a panther, and the pussycats around the neighborhood are not effective. They do catch a few birds and scare them, but these doves come in here, and a crowd of them, and can just devastate this quickly. So this is not that hard to do. It's just old screening, and didn't even buy this stuff. This just, so that's the method.
Well, tell me just a bit, so tell me the last thing, I guess, tell me a little bit about Urban Harvest and your 501c3.
Yeah, we are a charity. We are, I don't know what I could say more about that except to say that one of the ways you can learn gardening is to have a community garden in your neighborhood. There's one right down 6 blocks over here on West Belfort, Gray's Interfaith Community Garden. It produces tons and tons of food and donates it to the food pantry, which mainly helps struggling single mothers with a bunch of children coming from 6 zip codes that have temporarily had a significant problem in their life. And donation gardening.
Like hurricane evacuees?
Yeah, hurricane evacuees, maybe fleeing an abusive husband, don't have a job, maybe they lost their job and they're a single mother, so there are many possible reasons why somebody might be in need. Sometimes people have mental illness, they have drug problems. There are a lot of reasons why people are hungry, and a lot of reasons why their children are hungry. One of the things that's been found out about hunger during studies is there are a lot of parents that can go without food at the end of the month in order to make sure their children eat and they pay the rent. So when they get down that far, and there are other causes, many causes of that, but one kind of garden, that's a donation community garden, and youth education I already talked about, and there's a community garden that's designed just for education so people can learn how to garden.
Where's that?
We have one at our offices in the old 6th Ward just west of downtown Houston. On the Urban Harvest website, there's a directory of gardens from Magnolia to Galveston where people can get involved. They can garden just to grow food for themselves and their families. You can garden to learn how to do market gardening so you can sell food and make some income. There are many, many kinds of community gardens. The basic idea is it's a garden to help a part of the community. Therapy gardening and enabling gardening, people can recover from mental or physical illness using gardening. um, wheelchair-assisted beds, gardens for autistic children, um, people who are recovering from drug dependencies have gardens to develop one of the things about addictions are that people need instant gratification. And one of the things about gardening is a tree like that persimmon there could take 6 years to produce fruit. And I talked to neighbors and I say, well, that looks pretty good, that fruit there, that grapefruit tree. How many grapefruits did you get off of there? I said, I got 109 grapefruit. What did you pay for that? I planted it from a seed. How long did it take you? Well, I planted it in 1989 and I got my first fruit in 1996 and I got a lot of fruit in 1998. You say, oh, that's 9 years. Well, I wasn't just standing there watching it grow. I mean, it wasn't like I'm working very hard on this. But down 9 years, I might as well, that they're thinking, so even average people, not just addicts, they can't think 9 years ahead. I mean, they don't want to even do something that takes 9 years. And you can buy a grapefruit tree and save 4 years off of that at our fruit tree sale. So it'd be 5 years before you get a bunch of grapefruit instead of 9. But I guess I'm saying is that with therapy, for an addict to learn that if I plant these 1015Y onions in December or December or November, I will have these nice big onions in May or June. If I put them in a bag and refrigerate them, I will still be eating them in November. Well, maybe September start to rot. So, you learn that, and I'm not out here watching these things grow exactly, but it takes some time. And you have to set up a garden so it will produce this.
And just the work probably makes you feel healthier too and better.
Yes, and most people when they garden find that it doesn't matter what they're worrying about, they stop worrying about it. You can go out here for 3 hours and you go inside and you say, well, what was I thinking about during those 3 hours? I have no idea. Do not remember thinking about anything. I was out here this morning renovating this bed here, this pepper bed. And I was putting some mulch in here and cleaning out weeds and realigning these blocks because we need drainage. And try to ask whatever I might have been worrying about, I wasn't worrying about it when I finished here. So it's great therapy for the individual. I've been an executive director. I'm mostly at a desk job. I teach a bunch of classes, but I sit in front of a computer 5 days a week and talk on a telephone and go to meetings, This is a great alternative to that. And when I'm out here, Houston is a year-round vegetables, fruits, and flowers climate. That's the name of my book, actually. And one way of saying that is that doesn't matter what day of the year it is, you can find something you can eat. And you can go not just kumquats, they happen to be sitting here, but there's plenty of stuff. Most of the citrus that we're eating right now, including juice, we've already picked it, so I can't pick something off a tree and eat it. These are a type of cat mandarin. And actually see if that one's really not ripe for March, so right now it's a bit sour. But these are ripe or maybe even overripe. This is a clementine tangerine. And we have so many of these fruit that we don't even pick them all. And this is a bit seedy, but quite delicious, especially at peak ripeness. We'll see what it tastes like. Yeah, that's pretty good. Have some. A little bit overripe. Starts getting mushy when they get overripe. They have a, I like to say, this one has a kind of bouquet of apricot and reminiscent of a 1983 Chablis, and you know, kind of wine tasting terminology. These have subtle complexities that, mind you, we have picked almost all the fruit off this tree, and there's still a dozen or so. Look, actually, you can see better the neighbor's side because they're pretty ill, and you can see what these things look like, how many fruit there are on that thing. So one of the things I guess you could say is that fruit trees are, it's a bunch of work to get them through the first summer. They have shallow roots, they could die. If you water too much, you drown them. So the first summer you really have to watch them. But generally here in Houston, after that, they will live 10, 20, 200 years. There's an orange we call the Republic of Texas orange. It's called that because it was found down near Alvin in an abandoned farmyard, and they tree dated it from the Republic of Texas, 1840, whatever it was, and still alive and still producing with no help. Now, you compare that to mowing a lawn every day. What do? Cut this thing once a week, and and what do you get out of it? Well, I guess the best you could say is you get a water bill, you don't get any dust storms, and you don't get mud on your shoes, and the neighbors think you're good. But all I'd say is you can put fruit trees in your front yard and they don't object. In fact, it's the opposite. You have to keep the neighbors off of them. And my neighbors are very good. They don't steal fruit, but lots of people find that if they put a very tasty fruit out by the street, it's almost like, you know, putting a turkey dinner out there by the street. People are going to help themselves. So
thank you for this time and for this information.
You're welcome.